Hello, this is the Rosario Business Report. One, two, three, eyes on me, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my venture. I am your host, JJR, Joshua Jesus, motherfucking Rosario, coming to you from Mother Earth. That's here with a proper shout out to Father Time. What's up, man? Shout out to you. First and foremost, I am an entertainer. Everything I say is entertainment. Don't take anything seriously. Next, make sure you're an adult because this business is for adults only. And finally, don't break the laws of the land you're in. Whichever country you're tuning in from, keep those laws. If you can do that, we can get along. One, two, eyes on you. Today's episode is called Kissing Boundaries. Kissing Boundaries. I think this is important. The idea of boundaries and its intimate uh, meaning. I think it's very important. Boundary is like it's an interpersonal skill to be aware of. Very interpersonal, meaning privacy, meaning uh, take a hint, right? If you were to run into a conversation that seems to wither, right? Wither away. If you're trying to figure something out, but you can't, right? If you're trying to uh, become more knowledgeable about a certain subject, right? I call it kissing because we never know when we run into a boundary. And depending on the circumstances, these boundaries are usually intimate. Well, they should be. They should be intimate, personally. Because why would you want to surpass a boundary if it wasn't for some sort of interest, right? And the worth of knowing what's beyond the boundary. Um, Kissing boundaries. I take these ideas and I put them together, and as I speak, I try to figure it out while I'm on this um, podcast. We all have boundaries, whether we know it or not. We all have boundaries. And we should recognize those boundaries. I think those boundaries should always be recognized. Without the recognition of these boundaries, I feel, I personally know that there is a level within a negative outcome. That makes sense. There will be a negative outcome eventually if you ignore the boundary. I say kissing boundary because when you recognize a boundary and you acknowledge it and you show it respect, you're giving it a sense of intimate acknowledgement. Um, I believe intimate acknowledgement is important. If you break down the word intimacy, I got it from this movie called The Glove Guru. Very awesome. And it's into me I see. into me, I see. We should always be recognizing our own boundaries and knowing where our boundaries are. Because if we don't know where our boundaries are, how would others know where the boundaries are? Recognizing the boundaries, knowing the boundaries, and acknowledging the boundaries and respecting the boundaries. I say kissing. I'm not saying biting or crunching or fighting. I'm not saying fucking the boundaries. No. Or kiss to the boundaries. What kind of boundaries would we be running into? Right? Me, I'm leaning more towards communication. If I'm communicating with you and all of a sudden, let's say, excuse me, there is a conversation of interest, trying to figure each other out, right? Whether male, female, what the fuck ever. I would like to put to the point that you're respecting your own boundaries, right? You're respecting the other person's boundaries for yourself, right? So let's say we're in a conversation, you're in this conversation, and somewhere when things are a nice, smooth, ebb and flow, give and take, yet there's a moment of rigidness, right? Kind of like a speed bump in a conversation, right? I take that speed bump, right, as a hint. None of my business, right? Maybe take it for what it is and stop trying to figure out what it isn't, right? So let's say you try and figure something else about me, right? And let's say someone gives you an expression, right? Maybe from a smiling face down to a content look, right? There's a moment of here down to a moment of here, right? When we're here and we're communicating and you seem to have a little bit too interest in the subject, it's probably best to bring it down, right? Because you're becoming aware. I'm making sure you're aware of the boundary. But let's say some people don't take that. Some people are like oblivious to those expressions. They keep moving in, trying to figure out more about the subject. Whatever the subject is, I take a widespread subject. There's so much to talk about when it comes to the subject, right? It could be an object, but the main phase of it is what it is when it comes to the topic is very literal. Same goes for communication, right? And most boundaries are of personal space or personal knowing or any idea that needs to be rectified, right? So let's take a person with no boundaries. Person that has no boundaries whatsoever. It's a risk. It's like walking into the woods. Who knows what's in there, right? Some people are very open. I see myself as someone who is building a relationship with my own boundaries because I haven't recognized my boundaries yet. I haven't respected my boundaries yet. Not so much for others to respect them as well. Not where you're looking for them, you're looking for respect, yet you're respecting the recognition from others for your boundary. Because respect is all self respect, or it should be. 100% should be. So, what are my boundaries, right? Some people don't know. To be honest, I don't know. What are my boundaries? Do I respect my boundaries? Do I acknowledge my boundaries? I think it's important to have. Some people take it as a sense of being prude, depending on what's the context. Sex, the goal, or maybe it's a learned discipline, right? A safety reflex, safety response. Maybe. I don't know. But I do believe that it's important. And when I say kissing, it just shows that there's a form of intimacy there. Going back into me, I see, right? But let's take it as like a creep. Let's take a creep kissing a boundary of another, right? It's weird. That's weird. Yet, there's something about a boundary that's just so righteous that leaves me to believe that there's a sense of respect there. That's only if you lay down the importance of the boundary. How important is it to recognize your boundary? But what is the boundary? What is the boundary? Right? Is it getting too close to you as a person? An acquaintance trying to become a friend? Or a stranger trying to become an acquaintance? Or a family member trying to be a friend? Know your boundaries. And that's the thing. When you love, when you just love, it's very deceptive. Love is a deceiving idea when boundaries are involved. Because if you're in love with someone and there's boundaries, yet they haven't been self acknowledged, they haven't been recognized, recognition for you to know that it should be put in place. Boundaries I see are usually fit with actions rather than words. Yet, thoughts are a big effort here too. So let's say if you recognize your own boundaries and you think about your boundaries and you make sure that you avoid any moments where your boundaries are going to be touched, right? It's a weird feeling when your boundaries being touched. Like, let's say disrespect. Where is the boundary for disrespect, right? You ever see those mafia movies, right? I'm really big on the idea and the swag of just that mob mentality. I love it, right? Love it, absolutely in love with it. Where there's a scene where someone would take a rose, put it in that person's pocket, maybe kiss him on the forehead, walks away, and then that person just ends scene. That's what I mean by kissing boundaries. That's where I'm at with kissing boundaries. Because a boundary is a form of respect. And if you step on that boundary or become complacent or ignorant, willfully, um, that's where I want to lean with kissing boundaries. That mentality where I'm aware, I am now in accordance with your respect towards my boundary, right? Or with the magic of self respect, I am now in accordance with the idea that my respect for my boundaries have been misplaced. Where is my self respect? How do I apply that to my communication with others, right? With flawless application, with gorgeous application, and the message being solidified, right? A solid message that boundaries should be acknowledged. Boundaries should be a, it's more like a, what's that word? When you ask for something just in case, calm, what's that word? Let's find that word. Um, when you want something, what is that word? When you want something, right? So you ask permission. What is that called? Right, it is asking permission. Like asking permission to cross that boundary. Consent. Consent. I always thought about the word consent, like a play on words, kind of like "into me I see." Consent, like God send, right? Right? God, a universal life force, to send somebody. Because let's say you are the God of your boundary, and you give permission, you give consent for them to kiss the boundary, kiss it, and then go. That's what the respect should be. The respect should be to, it can lean both ways. Somebody trifles or treads on your boundary, right? You kiss their boundary to let them know that this is something that they should cherish or they should have. Because if they don't, then that's where the character flaw, I don't want to say character flaw, integrity, compromise, the compromise of integrity. I think it's important that if you're in love with someone, right, and a communication leads to a complacent give and take where you're both okay with trampling over the other's boundary. I personally don't think that's okay. Some people think that's okay. It's because maybe they're getting sex later. Is the sex that good? Is the loving that good? Is the food that good? Is that person that clean that it's okay to trample over the boundary? I'm far from perfect. If I see myself disrespecting someone's boundary, or even if they even realize it's there, that's what I mean by kissing boundary. I've realized the boundary that is there that you're not as aware of as I am, where you should or could and will, because it seems like a maturity thing. Because only kids, this is trickling back to the Natural Rebel podcast, From Inner Child to Higher Self, where the inner child isn't aware of these boundaries. And if they are, they're ahead of their mind. They're ahead of the game. I think it's important. So let's say me as a child, what kind of boundaries? Let's say like taking things, stealing. That's a big boundary. Right? Let's say you get caught. What's the consequence? For you to learn, right, that you got caught. You got caught for this action. What are the consequences? Should there be consequences for not kissing the boundary? What is a kiss? Let's look it up. Let's go to the dictionary. Let's look up what is a kiss, right? Let's see where the word kiss stems from. To touch with the lips. In respect, reverence, in respect. I'm using this right here, a very credible dictionary, but I can't say it. Old English. It's called Etymon Online. I suggest it. If not, I'll go to Google or whatever source the world deems okay. The dictionary. Should I have a paper dictionary on me? I should have a paper dictionary so people aren't weird. But I hope everybody can agree that a kiss is a touch with the lips. Right? You give somebody a kiss, what is it? Out of respect. Out of reverence. Right? It also says it's probably ultimately imitative of the sound to reciprocally kiss, to kiss each other. The vowel was uncertain, right? Vowel evolution. Kissing as an expression of affection or love is unknown among many races, and in the history of mankind seems to be a late substitute for the more primitive rubbing of noses, sniffing, and licking. Stuff leads towards sex. That's what it sounds like. But let's say, for integrity reasons, someone loves the idea of someone or someone else or anything disrespecting the boundary. Or, I don't want to say that. Let's say not acknowledging the boundary. And nobody speaks up. What's that saying? Closed mouths don't get fed. Open up your fucking mouth. Open it up. I'm an introvert. I know I am. I try saying that I'm omnivert. I just am. I just am. I do my best to be an extrovert. My absolute best. I've been doing it for such a long time that it just seems like I just am. And I'm good at it. To be honest, this is what I'm good at. Here it says the partial agreement among the words for kiss in some of the languages rests only on some common expressive syllables and is no conclusive evidence that kissing was known. Back in 1949. So we can all agree to embrace kiss of death. There you go. Here we go. Kiss of death. All right, meaning thing that signifies impending failure. Kiss of peace. These are pretty good. A cookie maybe. Light glancing touch. Touch lightly or gently. Kissing boundary. So let's say my boundary. Let's say it's the other. Let's take it as a adjective and noun. Right? Not a verb and noun, just an adjective and noun. Like kissing boundary. Right? So let's take discipline, for instance. I'm on this challenge called the Justice Challenge. Right? I created it myself. It's 1 meal a day, super functional training, and hydrate. It's not strict. I'm not strict on it. That's the boundary. Right? Strictness. I ended up creating, I just went on vacation. 2 weeks, 1 week, I trained for the week. The second week, I created, because of the circumstances, cheat week. It's my bulk week, my clean bulk week. That's what it is now. I need it because my body's flaco. I need it. Losing a lot of weight. So, what I do? Cheat week is where I eat clean for a week. Anything I want. And I don't train. I don't do anything. I don't do jack. And then I go back to 1 meal a day, super functional training, my jujitsu and my routine, and my bike, and I go. But when you kiss your own boundary, when your boundary, right, is intimate, an intimate boundary, kissing boundary, an intimate boundary, I'm very in tune with the discipline. Hence, my first report. Right. Now, let's say a plan. Let's say you place a plan in your calendar, right? And you are not going to let anything disrupt this plan. And if you do, there's a contingency plan. And for that one, there's another contingency plan, right? But that's only if the first plan is going according to plan. That's the goal. The plan is the goal. So the boundary between the plan and the contingency, I want to look this word up real quick. The word contingency, right? Yeesh. Let's go to the dictionary. Contingency. Contingency. No, here it is. Okay. Dependence on chance or on the fulfillment of a condition, uncertainty, fortuitousness. Contingent events, a chance, accident, or possibility conditional on something uncertain, something incidental to a thing. Chance, happening, possibility, an emergency, eventuality, occasion, odds. So just in case something doesn't work, just in case there's an emergency, contingency, plan. That's how it works. You have a contingency, then now you have a plan. All right. Now let's say the contingency that has happened is ineffective yet disruptive. Right? That is a kissing boundary. Something that is inconsiderate, right? Inconvenient, and honors miscommunication. That's the kissing boundary. That's what kissing boundary means. I have a solid plan. And now, because of this false contingency, I see it as false. And that's the thing about perception. Perception is reality and all that. It's true. It's true. Right? So, if the reality is that my plan is priority, right? That means the perception of that plan is priority, which is I'm okay with because that's what it is. It's exactly what it is. I don't see it any other way. So, trickling back, is it selfish for your priorities to go to plan? I don't think so. I think it's selfish for the inconvenience and the miscommunication and the inconsideration to go to plan. That's a contingency in itself. So the boundary, the kissing boundary, or the action of a negative universal life force becomes intimate with the boundary, which is an acknowledged plan or an acknowledged foundation. This starts to bring up the opposite of what intimacy is. What is the opposite of intimacy? What's an antonym of intimacy? Kissing, right? But this is trickling back again, the ripple effect, to the idea of that mob mentality of placing the rose, kissing, and eliminating. Right? So, having that plan, the inconvenience, the inconsideration, the miscommunication. Antonyms for intimacy. Let's see. Antonyms for, let's see. Oof. Man, that autocorrect is just some bullshit. Okay. Here we go. I don't know if anybody ever seen this before, but I find it hysterical. Let me show you. It's the two pigeons. All right, so I hope we can agree. Some antonyms for intimacy. What is the opposite of intimacy? This is distance. How close are we to our boundaries? How close are others to our boundaries? Excuse me. Ignorance. How ignorant are you to your boundaries? About your boundaries. Are you in a relationship with your boundaries? I think we all need to be in a relationship with our boundaries. It's just a boundary. How important is a boundary? What's that called? We have a border. It's a problem if anything crosses that border. The same goes for boundaries. becomes a kissing boundary. I see the fact that the level of importance, bringing importance to this, needs to be recognized anytime, as soon as possible. At any moment, as soon as possible. Because those boundaries is a line to cross. It's a fine line. I believe it should not be crossed, ever, unless given consent. Let's take certain fetishes, right? Let's do that. Fetishes. What are some fetishes? Right. Red Bull, plugs, right? What's that? Shibari, that rope tying, when you hang from the ceiling and you're naked, you're just swinging around and around. Yeah. Incompatibility. Incompatible. What do they say for relationships? It's incompatible. If you have an incompatible boundary, now that brings up another point. If you meet somebody with similar boundaries, who recognizes your boundaries, right? And you recognize their boundaries, now you both have boundaries that you can share, right? And give. So let's say both of you don't have boundaries. That's still compatible. If I have no boundaries and she has no boundaries, if my company has no boundaries and their company has no boundaries, but let's say my company has boundaries, my business has boundaries, and their business has boundaries, that's just security, right? So, they say in some relationships, it's nice to feel safe and secure, right? When you're compatible for each other. I want to go back to the word security. Because security and boundaries, security, freedom from danger. That's what a boundary is. So let's say if you have a kissing boundary, it seems like the idea of a successful risk taker is being placed here. Freedom from care, anxiety, or doubt, well-founded confidence. I've been in security for a long time. Something that secures or makes safe. Kissing boundaries. Precautions taken to guard against crime, attack, sabotage, espionage, etc. Deception. Kissing boundary. You know, when they say when you lie, you can no longer be trusted again. It's going to be very hard to trust you. Smallest lie. What if it's not a lie? It's just a certain perception that is real to that person. You can't say it's a lie if it's a reality to them. Is it pathological? If you don't believe that person, if you don't believe in that person, yeah, it is. Or if you do believe in that person, then you'll realize that it's not pathological at all. It's just what they believe. It's just what they know. And I believe that the compatibility and the convenience and the consideration within the communication needs to be taken into proper acknowledgement to recognize who we are as beings with interpersonal skills. Knowing your boundaries, knowing others' boundaries, and knowing the statistic of personal space or interpersonal space. Communication is not tangible, but it does affect how messages are translated in whatever language. I know that with the proper guidance, we can become more intimate with each other when we recognize the boundaries. You become more intimate with yourself when you recognize your boundaries. So let's say I want to take me and I want to place me with a fact that my boundary is unrecognized. Yet, I recognize it when I feel uncomfortable, when I know I am uncomfortable. Yet, speaking up. Again, being an introvert, I have to know how to speak the fuck up. And that's my problem. And sometimes people find it non-threatening, yet intimidating. Right? It's not threatening or intimidating, yet non-threatening. It's an oxymoron for the morons. Freedom. It's funny how boundaries is synonymous to freedom. So, let's go. I'm keeping the word freedom here. I want to go back to intimate. Right? Confidential. Kissing. Intimate. Confidential. Confident. Confident, freedom. Let's go to freedom. This is how my mind works, like a blockchain. My brain is literally a blockchain. It takes one thing, connects it to another thing, connects it to another thing, which connects to another thing, right? So we took confident. We're going to freedom. There's a couple words here. I just want to take one from freedom. I love synonyms. I love it. Confident. Self-determination. kissing boundary. Confident self-determination. That's heavy. That's heavy. Give yourself consent. I need to give myself consent to become confident within my self-determination. Become confident with my self-determination. Become confident. What does confident self-determination mean? No matter the circumstances, no, it can be adjusted. Your boundaries can be adjusted. You have to change. If not, you're going to change. Think the universe stops for you? You think stars explode for you to remain the same? They don't for me. No, they don't. But you know what does stand still? What is still? The kiss of the boundary. The kiss of the boundary. It's kind of like it's like a tattoo. Nobody knows what the boundary looks like, but we can take it that it's ourself. Self-determination. It's still us. Still the self. Confidence. How important? What's the importance of confidence? Confidence is important. So important self. How important are you? Do you let people, without your permission, without your consent, fuck with yourself? I do. And I hate it. I hate it a lot. Why? Because I haven't kissed any of my boundaries. In this video, this vlog, podcast, report, whatever, is to state the fact that I will be kissing my boundaries with this report from Rosario Business Report. I will be kissing my boundaries. I will be acknowledging the importance of myself. I will be giving confidence to my self-determination. I will become intimate with my safety and security. Because if I'm not, there is a lot of dangerous activity happening in the mind. I went on vacation. I feel so much better here than there. But because of the circumstances, I learned how to better myself. I learned how to adjust. I learned how to become better with better things in mind because of the circumstances, because of the boundaries that were acknowledged along the way. boundaries have to be acknowledged. Our boundaries need to be kissed. Whether by yourself, whether by anyone else. Yet there's a certain trust that needs to be given, and that's the consent. It's implied. Trust is implied. Do you trust someone to tread on your boundaries? They'll do it to a puppy. Let's say you just got a puppy, or you just have a baby. Right? Scratches your face because they're playing. That's fine. But if it's a grown adult that scratches your face because they're playing, this is why the child, trickling back to the archived podcast, we are just rebels, recognizing and realizing our true nature, our older self, our higher self, for a universal train of thought. We need to train our thoughts to become more intimate with our boundaries. Right? And to give consent for others to become more intimate with our boundaries as well. Yet, if no boundaries were given, no consent was given. No consent was given, intimacy is a wavering flag, a red wavering flag. I believe red flag and lack of boundary, lack of intimacy are all related. If nobody kisses your boundary, if nobody gives you the recognition of respect and doesn't acknowledge the consideration, the convenience, and the effective yet proper communication, to your boundaries, they give that level of thought to your life's plan. It's your life. It's your plan. Life evolves. Life keeps changing. Whether you like it or not, you're growing old. That's how it changes. You mature. That's a choice. So is recognizing and respecting the importance of yourself and the importance of your boundaries. So I give everyone this moment to kiss their boundaries. I kiss all of your boundaries, and I praise nothing but faith and justice for your boundaries. This is the Rosario Business Report, and today's episode was kissing boundaries. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. 1, 2, eyes on you. I am turning off the video now. I hope you enjoyed it.